devils rush in, where angels fear to tread. And so I come to you, my love, my heart above my head.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Drive-In Double Feature. I'm Nathan.
I'm Ryan.
And this is the podcast where we talk about 2 movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before we get into this Tuesday edition's movie, I want to talk to you about our Patreon. Over on patreon.com/driveindoublefeaturpodcast. Just for $5 a month, you can get exclusive bonus episodes and you can help us out and help fund the show. But no main content is there. All the main stuff is right here for free. And this Tuesday's movie is Buffalo 66 from 1998. I know there's a bit, throws you off a little bit with the title.
But, yeah, you want to say 1966, don't you?
Just a little bit. There was a little stutter there because I wanted to say 1966. But this is the kind of an infamous movie from a very infamous director, Vincent Gallo. This is his directorial debut after many years of acting, and this is kind of his big breakthrough.
Or his peak.
Honestly, it might be his peak. You start strong and you end strong, I guess. Or no, well, he didn't end strong. You start strong and you kind
start
of
strong and end with the whimper.
Oh, yeah. But Buffalo 66 is one of my favorite movies. I remember, I think I just watched it on a whim. I just saw it was available somewhere, and it's on the 1001 movies to watch before you die list. And I put it on, and I really like it. And I think it's just a weird little indie movie. I know a lot of people have seen it, but I still think not many people have seen it. But what's your experience with this movie, Ryan?
I've known about it for a long time. This is my first time watching it. And
nice.
I had known about it because I do also have the book 1001 movies to see before you die. So this was going to be a watch eventually. I'm just now watching it though. But I didn't like it a lot after the first viewing.
Mm-hmm.
But I watched it, and then I just kept thinking about it for a couple of days, and I actually went back and rewatched a lot of it. But at first I didn't like it, but it kind of made a lot more sense towards the ending, I feel like, because it's he's kind of a scumbag in this movie.
Oh, he's awful.
Yeah, but it kind of puts the pieces together towards the end of the movie, why he's like that and how he turned out that way. But I was just kind of after I watched it, I was like, this is what this was a big deal, I guess. But then I went back and I'm like, you know what, I gotta watch it again because I'm still thinking about it. So I went back and I rewatched it again, and I liked it a lot more.
Yeah, I totally get that. I think this is a movie that does get better on rewatch. This is probably my 4th time watching it. Now, I will say I liked it the first time I watched it, but I think it grows on me, and I think about certain scenes and elements of this movie as time goes on. But I think before we get into the movie, maybe we have to talk about how awful Vincent Gallo, the person, is. I think this is one of those movies where you seriously have to and I think it's hard to say, but the classic line, separating the art from the artist, and it's hard to do because he's director, writer, and starring in this, and he's playing an asshole in the movie.
Well, I was about to say, can you though? Because to me, the character in the movie is him. It's him.
Yeah, it really is, and there's something about that I like, and somebody is able to play themselves this openly. Most people that are this awful, I feel can hide it, but he really captures himself in this movie. He's really vulnerable in this movie, and I don't know, this performance really captures me because I don't know. he plays himself well. I guess it makes sense that he plays himself well, but he
Yeah.
does it to a T.
Well, I mean, like, he starts very, very rough in the beginning, and he gets out of prison, and the first thing he does is he kidnaps Christina Ricci, and it's like within the first 10 minutes, he kidnaps a girl, and like, so that's why I didn't like it at first, because I was more like tense, like what is happening? Like, what's he gonna do to this girl? And then, but once it all kind of unravels, then it's like, oh, okay. And then when I started rewatching it again, I was able to appreciate those scenes a lot more, because I was like, okay, the dialogue is kind of funny now that I know what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. I get that totally. Yeah, especially because this whole quest, and I think he ends up kidnapping this girl just because he has to pee really bad. The whole beginning of this movie is like a quest for him to find a bathroom. And literally, once he finally takes a pee, after he's kidnapped a girl, yelled at many people, he's much calmer, and he's like, all right, I'm sorry, but I'm going to take you to my parents' house to show you off as my wife, as my girlfriend. I think it's kind of funny that everything is based off of the need to pee. I think we've all been there.
Yeah. Once you get to that heightened point, it's just like, nothing, like, get out of my way. but yeah, it is. I mean, kind of going back to what you said, it really is hard, because he does encounter a homosexual character in the opening part of the movie, and he starts using slurs against this man and like assaulting him a little bit. So it's just kind of like okay, like, I guess that's just so he's not really a likable guy. But then, like, you go and he's like, okay, he's like that for a reason or whatever. But then, like, when I go back and watch like interviews with like the real guy, Vincent Gallo, it's like, oh no, this is how he is.
Yes, yeah, because that he has very hard political views. He says slurs. He famously wished cancer upon Roger Ebert, and then Roger Ebert got cancer. And even to his co-stars, Christina Ricci here, she said she was horrible to work with and was drunk constantly on set, which isn't really true. Blame the movie not showing at Cannes on Angelica Houston. Just a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he made a lot of terrible. Well, for one, he called Christina Ricci overweight, which she's not really. No. And called her a puppet, just said like she had like attitude, but he's like, oh, she's a puppet though. I just told her what to say. And then totally disparaged Angelica Houston and Kevin Corrigan at the time, who plays his friend Goon, asked to be uncredited in this movie. He didn't want to be in it, but he's since come around, and now he does a lot of Q&As for the movie. But
that's good.
But at the time, he didn't want anything to do with it. And not only that, it was the cinematographer. He had gotten Lance Accord to do the movie, and he like totally like
destroyed him.
Like, this was like, he's a button pusher. If the movie looked good, it was me. Like, he had nothing to do with it. And this guy, he's worked on a lot of really famous movies. He's worked on Lost in Translation. He's worked on a bunch of Spike Jonze's movies. So he's not an untalented man, but according to Vincent Gallo, he is.
Yeah, who never worked on a Hollywood picture, a real Hollywood picture. It's just, he's not a good person. And you see a lot of that in this character in this movie. But what I find interesting is this movie, not to say that I ever feel bad. Well, you feel bad for the character. You do. Not that you relate to him in any way and really condone what he does, but you at least feel bad for him. You understand where circumstances have taken him to this point. And I think that's interesting. I don't know if we've gotten that arc from Vincent Gallo himself yet, where I really feel bad for him. Especially if you go on his website, it is awful. You can buy a weekend with him for $50,000 as an escort if you want.
Oh, hey, patrons.
Yeah. Yeah. $50,000 goal, please.
Oh, yeah. I personally wouldn't want to hang out with him, but
No.
but it does. The character in the movie is a lot more sympathetic once you realize, like, when it gets towards the end and starts becoming the reason why he's such a terrible person, and like his parents are just terrible to him. Like his mother wishes he was never born, and
all over a football game.
Right. Well, his mom's obsessed with the Buffalo Bills, and that's like a big thing. Like the one time, like they got to the AFC Championship and lost. She was in the middle of giving birth to him, and she's like, "If I wasn't going to give birth to him, I could have been there. I could have been there." Which is funny because like that is how a lot of sports fans think, is that if I don't watch this game, they are going to lose.
Yeah, exactly. They're because of, what do you call it, bad juju and all that. Like there's certain things you have to do to make sure that they win.
They have to do certain rituals, and like they have to do certain tasks at each day, otherwise they will lose.
Yeah, exactly.
And she's so obsessed with it that she keeps, because it's funny because I kept wondering, like, what is the time? Like, is this like supposed to be set in the present day or whatever? Because the house looks really old on the inside, and the football game they're watching is in black and white. But then all of a sudden, like when one of the commercials comes on the TV that they're watching the game, she pulls out the remote and fast forwards through the commercials. So it's like, oh, okay.
She's there.
She's just obsessively watching this game like over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's one of those things I find it very interesting about this movie. It has that old aesthetic, right? It's almost 70s looking. The colors are very washed out. Like I was reading, it's supposed to be shot like old football, like film reels. But no, it's present day because it actually is based off of I guess there was a period where the Bills went to the Super Bowl 4 times in a row.
They lost each game.
They lost each game. And that's kind of Vincent Gallo. He's in prison at the beginning of the movie because he bet on the Bills really, like a really huge amount he didn't have, and ended up taking the fall for it. Taking the fall for a different guy, and went to prison for 5 years.
I like the part where he's been in jail for so long that his family would just like, they didn't even realize that he wasn't in jail, or they didn't realize he was in jail rather, and because they don't care about him that much. They just were like, oh yeah, he's out working or whatever. And like even when they're over there, they're like, even though like they insisted that he come over, they're like annoyed that he's there, or like they don't even like he's in the way or something.
Exactly. If for some reason it was just like a ploy to kind of see his girlfriend, who he kidnapped and isn't even really his girlfriend. Which is quite a setup. Christina Ricci is playing this girlfriend, and I really like her in this movie. I hate that Gallo like disparages her performance so much, because it's a very hard line to play somebody that's been kidnapped and is sympathetic for the main character, Billy. And she plays that line very well.
One thing I think we should say too about Christina Ricci is she was 17 at the time of filming this.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know that. I guess that would make sense.
She was born in 1980. The movie came out in 98. So I believe as they were filming, she was 17. So she was an underage girl at the time.
Wow. So just pair the two things up.
Yeah. Just keep adding another thing to the pile, making it that much more worse.
Yeah.
I will say though, they did interview. One of the later interviews, like they were actually interviewing her about that, and they're like, "Oh, don't you think it's a little weird that a director took advantage of a little, an underage girl or whatever?" And she did clarify that Vincent Gallo is not a creep or anything like that, where he's just was leering on her and trying to take advantage of her. She's like, oh, well, he's a giant jerk, and he's really obnoxious, but he never did anything to, he never tried to harass me in any sort of way.
Yeah. But yeah, I get that. He's just an asshole.
Yeah, pretty much. So
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. But I think the scenes that I think about the most in this movie are the scenes where he visits his parents. I like think about just like the shot composition and everything, because the way it's like they're sitting at the table and the camera is always in place of one of the people. So you're seeing three other people at all times and the camera just kind of shifts around. It's, oh my God. I think I love the way this movie is shot in general. I think that's one of the best things about this movie, just the look of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It always makes you feel really uncomfortable the whole time too. Mm-hmm. Or when Christina Ricci's trying to tell Vincent Gallo's parents this lie about him, and his mother is clearly not listening. She just looks like so into the game, just like yeah, like just, and they're like, yeah, go on, like
yeah. And I love it whenever she asks for pictures of Billy, and then Angelica Houston's like, yeah, where's the picture? And just says like picture singularly, because they only have one picture of him in the house, and like the father has to like dig around to find it.
Well, yeah, the mother says like, oh, here's me with the Buffalo Bills like team manager, here's me with like, she had a whole photo album of Buffalo Bills stuff. But yeah, they just have to go like, where's the picture? Like, oh yeah, here it is.
Yeah. And one of the more interesting things about this movie is this movie uses a lot of like frame within frame kind of weird stuff. Because there's a scene where we kind of get flashbacks to his parents, and like it almost appears in the middle of the screen, like this flashback, and kind of zooms in over the actual frame. I find that interesting, but it also some of like one of the most awful scenes where the father threatens to kill his kill his dog Bingo. And I was just like, oh wow, like, and then it's just sold really well. He does a great job, and it's just
yeah. Well, they asked the dad like, oh, what happened to the Christina Ricci? Like, oh, what happened to the dog? And he's like, oh, I don't know. Like he just kind of blew it off. But then it's clearly Billy's flashback where it's his dad murdering his dog like right in front of him.
Yeah. So you get like glimpses of that, and I think you realize Christina Ricci in that time realizes like, hey, this guy just has dealt with a lot of issues and has had nobody to love him, and he's lonely. He's a very lonely person, and Vincent Gallo has said that in his real life, that he prefers to be alone, that he just feels like a very lonely person. So even more of himself into this movie.
Yeah. Hey, miserly, I guess better to be alone or whatever. I don't know with those types of personalities.
That's true. That's very true. Trying to think, because like that's a really great scene. This movie is filled with a lot of great moments pieced together, I feel like.
I was going to ask you about one of those moments is his dad having that musical number.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, where it's just like him lip syncing a different song.
Did you? And they said that was actually Vincent Gallo's dad, the one that was doing the singing voice.
Yeah, which is so interesting. There's something about that, because it like totally just like the movie drops and just allows for this scene to kind of happen. Like he's just sitting there singing to her. There's another scene exactly like that where Christina Ricci just like the film drops in a bowling alley and she tap dances to King Crimson's Moonchild, and it's just tap dancing in the middle of a bowling alley. I thought it was pretty good. I guess that was really her tap dancing, because she was a tap dancer.
Yeah. I mean, she did a good job.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you though, did you find the dad to be super creepy with Christina Ricci? Like,
yes.
He met them, and he was immediately like, "Oh, your daddy loves you," even though he just meets this girl and like starts like hugging her and kissing her, and it's like,
yeah, I think that's the point where he's just kind of an old creep. But the whole part where he like hugs her and puts his face in her chest, that was all ad-libbed. he he ad-libbed that. So what a weird ad-lib, Ben.
Yeah, that's a choice, I guess.
Yeah, and I think those performances are really great. I love that's a performance from Angelica Houston, unlike a lot of stuff she's done before. And I hate that Gallo like craps on her. And it's the return of Addams Family sitting at the dinner table.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Morticia Addams and Wednesday Addams.
Back together finally.
There's a lot of stuff in here too. Like when they go to the bowling alley, they end up taking pictures together, which is kind of a funny scene where he's like, I like it because he's trying to explain to her, it's like, we span time, our love spans time, and then she starts like doing like goofy faces, like, no, we don't do goofy faces, our love spans. And then she starts doing like a serious face, and then she kisses him, and he's like, no, don't touch me, and he's like, and he's like, our love spans time, but we do not touch each other.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like, what does that even mean, Vincent? Like our love spans time. I great line, by the way. But and these are all pictures. It's so wild how he asks favors of people and then just treats them like complete garbage. Like, because that's the whole character Goon, his friend for years, just treats him like complete trash, and all he ever does is like be nice to him. He gave him raisins in prison.
I know, like, Billy, I gave you the raisins. Remember, I gave you the raisins, Billy.
Yeah, and it's just it's such a wild mix of, I guess it's just bipolar. Like it feels just like one emotion to the next emotion, just jumping around. Another scene I really like is Rosanna Arquette shows up in a very bit part where they show up in the diner. And I guess the fake name he gave, Christina Ricci, is the name of Rosanna Arquette, someone he knew from 6th grade. And she doesn't even really remember him. I guess they were in class every year together. It was like, oh yeah, I knew you from 3rd grade. And I guess Vincent Gallo there, his character, was like obsessed with her at some point. I think this is when the movie gets like really sad. I think the movie kind of hits a point where it just is just really depressing, because he blames his whole life, his life being awful, against one person, the kicker of the Bills who missed the field goal to win the game, Scott Norwood. And I guess they asked him to be in this movie and he refused, which I can understand.
Yeah, so they changed his name and get a different actor. So
yeah,
but no, I did like that scene because Christina Ricci just wants a hot chocolate, and he like won't let her have a hot chocolate. Like throughout he's like so annoyed, like that this girl that he's been dragging around all night and day, like she wants like food or to have fun, like to do something. And he's just like such a jerk to her. Just like, it's like, we don't have time for that.
Oh, and one of my favorite bits where she's a jerk to her is whenever they get in the car after he's kidnapped her, and it's a stick car. He's like, I drive luxury cars, okay? We don't use shifters. I don't drive cars like this.
I am used to luxury. Do you not know what a Cadillac is?
Yeah, and like in the context of only in this movie, I feel like a guy kidnapping a girl and saying something like this is actually like remotely funny. And then he forces her to drive him. The girl he kidnapped is driving him around.
Which I always think the opposite about luxury vehicles. I always think of like stick shift to be like a car's car, like edition. Like,
because I feel like a car person loves a stick shift. Like somebody who really likes cars, they want a stick shift.
Yeah, that's what everyone always says. Like, you gotta get stick if you're, if you love cars. But
yeah, but Billy there doesn't agree.
So I do want to kind of jump forward a little bit. So when they kind of get back, and like you said, he's been plotting his revenge against the kicker, and he's planning on murdering him. But before he does that, Christina Ricci and him go hang out at a hotel room for a little while. And
Mm-hmm.
he has these very, very specific boundary issues
Mm-hmm.
where he doesn't he wants to go sit in the bathtub, and she's like, I just want to go in there and sit with you and talk with you. And he doesn't want her in there.
Mm-hmm.
He's made it very clear that he doesn't want to be hugged or kissed or anything like that. And eventually they do get warmed up to each other to at the point where they're sitting in the bed together, and he does kiss her at a certain point.
Yes.
And that's the only thing that happens as far as we know. But I was going to ask you, do you think they explain why or what the reasoning is for that? Because I have a theory.
No. What's your theory?
I think he was raped in prison.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Because he's very, very hostile towards the one gay character that we encounter.
Yeah.
And because he thinks the gay guy is looking at him when he's going to the bathroom, while he's peeing. And he doesn't want to be touched, he doesn't want to be kissed, and he's clearly bothered every time he gets touched and kissed. And if you go back when I was doing my rewatch, there's in the collage, he does a collage of scenes of him in prison.
Mm-hmm.
And there is one scene where he's in the shower crying, and
that would
and another one where he's being approached by another man in the bathroom.
Gotcha.
So I think that's why. That's my theory. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but
I get it. I get it totally.
I think that's what would explain a lot of that, because I was like, why is he being so weird about boundary issues or something?
Yeah, exactly. No, and I totally agree with that. I see that now, because that's how the movie opens, with the collage of his time in prison, and he's just he's kind of laying on a bench in front of the prison, just kind of broken, No, that's a good theory. I like that. So spoilers. This movie ends on an actual happy note, a somewhat happy note. The first time I watched this, I would have never guessed, honestly.
Oh, I didn't. I had no clue. I thought it was going to end right there, because he goes to the strip club,
mm-hmm.
and you think he's about, and it does show him shooting the kicker,
mm-hmm.
and his mother is still listening to the Bills on her radio or whatever, and, at his funeral. And then you think that's how the movie ends, but he kind of snaps out of it, and he just I'm gonna go see my girlfriend.
Yeah, it's kind of almost it feels like It's a Wonderful Life, where he's yes, I am reborn, I am a new man, I'm gonna change my ways, kind of deal. And I there's something kind of heartwarming about it, where he goes to the donut shop. He's I want one of those heart cookies, and then he buys a heart cookie for another guy just because he has a girlfriend.
Who can't? He's what is this? What is this? It's it's a heart cookie. Yeah, give me a heart cookie. Hey, you got a girlfriend? It's give her a heart cookie. Make sure you give it to her, okay? Mm-hmm. It's give me a hot chocolate, nice and hot.
Yeah. No, what a great scene. I really do. I think this movie, I think it ends perfectly.
And that's where it ends, right? When he goes back to the hotel, and then that's
it. It just kind of says the end, and you know what? That's fine. We don't need to know. I feel like it'd be too much if we kind of knew what happened afterwards. But
so before he goes into the strip club, he's thinking he's going to die or commit suicide, and he calls up his friend Goon, and he's hey, you're my best friend, and all my personal belongings, I want you to have them, just take them. And the character is he's Billy, what are you doing? Don't do anything bad, Billy. And he hangs up the phone, and then after he chooses not to kill himself, he immediately calls back Goon. He's hey, forget all that stuff, don't touch my stuff, man.
That's my stuff.
Yeah. If I hear you've been touching, I'm going to come after you.
Yeah, and he's just I have a girl now. I have a girl, just claiming that to Goon. Yeah, and I wonder what a movie, right? It's such a interesting time. I think it was worth talking about here just because it's very interesting. I don't really think much exists like it. It's very much of a whirlwind of one guy making something very personal to him.
And that's why he's now a mega celebrity.
Yeah. He's doing stuff such as he was like in some he was in a
DVD movie.
He was in a Francis Ford Coppola movie, Tetro.
His best one.
The one everybody saw. Well, arguably his most popular movie would come next. I don't know.
Literally.
Yes, literally. That's what is that? The Brown Bunny. Maybe not the whole movie. I will say that. But maybe we'll cover that one day. I don't know. I think I might be okay leaving it here at Buffalo 66.
Yeah, this might be our only Vincent Gallo movie, but I would definitely say, there are some stuff in here that some people may not want to see or hear, which I don't blame them, but it's interesting. And like I said, I did not like it after my first viewing, but like I said, I kept thinking about it so much. I had to go back and rewatch it, and I liked it a lot. But I think once you're prepared for what's going to happen, it's like, okay, like it's not, because when it starts out with the kidnapping, you're like, oh God, like what's going to happen? And then you realize he's just a guy that's like barely being held together right now mentally. So
yeah, he's just at the end of the rope and end of his rope, having to use the bathroom. No.
But yeah, you could definitely just go watch some Vincent Gallo interviews too. That'll get your fill, definitely.
I think so. Yeah, I think you'd get a lot of the same. But no, I mean, I recommend this movie. I mean, like you said, there is a lot of controversy here and behind the scenes, but I think as a movie, I think it's a really just great experience, one of a kind. Definitely check it out.
Yeah.
But Ryan, what are we going to be covering on Thursday?
Well, Nathan, we were going to be talking about suspense horror classic, and that is When a Stranger Calls. Now, I will specify it is on Amazon Prime, but for whatever reason, the audio on that is terrible, like almost unlistenable in my opinion. But it is available everywhere else: Tubi, Pluto TV, Peacock, all available for free on there. Feel free to go check it out on one of those services instead.
Well, I'm excited to watch that. Also, if you want to follow us, you can follow us over at DIDF Pod over on Twitter. And you can email us at driveindoublefeaturpodcast@gmail.com if you have any recommendations or just want to talk about some memories with some movies that we've talked about. What?